Some cracking Wimbledon for BBC Two now. In this week's Clash of the Titans, memories of Centre Court, 1980.
John McEnroe, instinctive, volatile. Björn Borg, cool, controlled. Two men, worlds apart, whose worlds would collide.
Please tell me! Please tell me!
They were like the shootout at the OK Corral. These two guys were the gunslingers, and the town wasn't big enough for both of them.
There was a good guy, bad guy, and you pick them. You pick which you want.
The good guy had won Wimbledon for the past 4 years. By 1980, Björn Borg was the undisputed world number one.
Bjorn was a god at Wimbledon. I mean, he could really do no wrong there. And John, I mean, there was smoke coming out of his ears as soon as he rolled out of bed.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line!
By 1980, McEnroe's outbursts may have become predictable. His tennis, however, was anything but. Now, number two in the world, he was the greatest threat yet to Borg's reign.
1980. It just seemed to be bringing together these two great novas, these great stars, and to have these two contrasting styles, the puncher and the counter-puncher, it's like two great fighters. Well, it was like covering a heavyweight championship fight.
People see me playing, they think maybe that I don't have any emotion or I don't have any feelings. I mean, like a machine. I am on the tennis court because that's the way I have to be playing and performing my best tennis.
I know deep down that people are much more like me than him on the tennis court. I mean, just go look at it, go to a public course, you'll see people throwing the rackets and yelling. That's normal. You see, I'm normal. He's abnormal.
It was ice against fire. The Swedish guy who was totally in control of himself against McEnroe, who was full of fire and full of bile. And the collision was the greatest thing to happen in tennis because it took tennis out of the era of cucumber sandwiches and Pimm's #1 into burgers and Budweisers.
Cream teas and anyone for tennis gave way to glam rock when Borg made his debut at 17.
He had this Viking look about him, you know, and he had these wonderful cobalt blue eyes and the flowing flaxen locks.
He looks like a rock star. He plays like an angel. The teeny boppers were all over him.
The committee didn't quite know how to deal with him because there had been nothing like this before. When you see a man taken to court among an armed escort of policemen, it's a little unusual, to say the least.
And more shocks were to come as Borg began his match against Britain's Roger Taylor on the hallowed centre court.
It seemed as all the teeny boppers came out of the woodwork. For a tennis player, there were squeals. All these maidens were having Borgasms.
Even on the centre court, we've got the teenagers rushing on. I've never seen this before in my life.
Tennis was considered sort of a wimpy, lame sport. So when Bjorn came along with the long hair and the headband, good-looking girls falling over him, it sort of reminded people of sort of rock and roll or whatever, and it just put tennis in a whole new light.
But Borg was no rebel. With his model looks went model behaviour. Soon the establishment loved him as much as the teeny boppers.
With a lovely wrong footing volley.
You're quite sure?
7-all.
Oh, the ball was so far in. I mean, you see it in?
The teenage McEnroe arrived at Wimbledon in 1977, and he too shook the establishment.
Now McEnroe must just buckle down, play to the umpire, and try and win this set.
7-all. Will you please serve?
I had a difficult time not considering the umpires enemies, the way they called balls. I could not believe that people could continuously be so inept with line calling worldwide, and then have the audacity to tell me that I was wrong, and I sit there and watch millions of balls. That's all I ever do is look at balls.
I don't think Wimbledon realised quite what had hit them with John McEnroe. I don't think the tennis knew what had hit them. Some of us had seen flashes of it before in the juniors. This was something entirely new, and they didn't know quite how to deal with it.
I spoke to him like a Dutch uncle, really, and telling him that I thought that if he'd learned to control himself and behave, that he'd be a much better player all round.
He was irascible and he was a wild man, but he was still pretty much in check that first year. And I would go to all his press conferences and hold his hand and try to generally lend a parental arm. And there was a sense of a time bomb. It was just starting to tick then.
McEnroe had come to Wimbledon to play in the juniors, but by the second week he was in the semi-finals of the main event, playing none other than Jimmy Connors. It was a taste of things to come. Wimbledon 1980, one of the wettest on record. But nothing could dampen the growing sense of anticipation of a clash between the New Yorker McEnroe and four-time champion Borg. He was chasing his 5th title in a row. And as usual, he took a calm and efficient route through to the final.
That's it.
The call came before the ball was played.
He never even called it.
Well, no, yes, he called
No,
it.
he never said anything.
He called a fall.
Meanwhile, McEnroe was making waves. In his semi-final, he faced a determined Jimmy Connors, once the bad boy himself. Sparks flew. McEnroe was given Wimbledon's first official warning, and Connors was able to play the good guy.
Mr. McEnroe, you are getting a public warning. Now, please play on.
Keep your mouth shut out here.
That whole idea about unexpressed thought, I mean, he's just never really understood that, you know, and he's always said, I'm a feisty Irishman. And there is an Irish side to John, I guess that's true enough, but he still wanted to belong. He just wanted to be a part of history, of Wimbledon history.
And he got his chance as he outplayed Connors. After 3 hours and 5 minutes, McEnroe was through to his first Wimbledon final.
Once you get to the final, that's what you've been shooting for. I mean, you get to play Björn Borg, one of the greatest players of all time, Jimmy Connors in the semis. I mean, what more could you ask for? That's it, right there. That's what it's all about.
The stage was set for the showdown, the idol of the traditionalists versus the rabble's hero.
If McEnroe loses this afternoon, quite frankly, I'll eat my hat.
You knew that one day that John McEnroe was going to become Wimbledon champion. You weren't quite sure when. Björn Borg, somehow you couldn't ever see him losing.
And the Borg camp was full of anticipation.
When you start winning Wimbledon 1, 2, 3 times in a row, of course, it should be a 4th and a 5th. So, I mean, we were, of course, expecting to win.
2 weeks or 3 weeks after Wimbledon would finish, we'll get married, we'll have our marriage in Romania. I cannot tell you exactly how he said it, but he made me understood that this should be a nice present for my wedding.
Then the unthinkable happened. In the bastion of manners and tradition, John McEnroe was booed onto court.
John had already established himself as a bad boy. But I think even John would have to say that he was surprised that for a Wimbledon final, in front of the royal box and in front of, this grand setting, to walk on to decide a title and be booed was something I think even surprised him.
Already the odd boo for the villain of yesterday's piece, John McEnroe, when he beat Jimmy Connors.
It was very, very hard to listen to, really.
McEnroe ran away with the first set. But with the partisan crowd cheering his every mistake, he conceded the second. It was 1-set all.
You pick up everyone's energy in the box as well. So every time Mariana would light up a cigarette, or, you'd see the coaches shifting in their seats or something, that, I would get more nervous. Plus, I could feel some of what John was feeling.
Borg took the third set and needed only one more for victory. The fourth went to 6 games all, and so to a tie-break. 2 clear points would give Borg his place in the record books.
The tie-break was probably one of the most dramatic moments in tennis history.
It was just like one guy kind of one-upping the other.
Anything you can do, I can do better. And they were doing that with their shot making. There'd be a match point against him, then a set point against Borg, then a match point against McEnroe. They sometimes became each other.
I don't know really what I was thinking. I was up in the air.
Leonard, he was just white in the face. He was white. He didn't have any more expression. He was like almost like a dead man.
Oh, God, how could he have missed that?
I didn't have any more strength to watch, but I had to sit there.
Down.
You knew something special was happening. You could just feel the energy in the air.
Oh! Unbelievable shot.
The extraordinary tennis continued. Borg saved 6 set points, McEnroe 5 championship points. After 22 minutes, the American finally took the set to level the match.
Yes, 2 sets all.
22 minutes of just sheer, well, I don't think there was a dry pair of knickers in the house.
It was too much. That was really too much. I nearly died 7 times.
And then end up losing after like 25 minutes, having like 7-8 match point. I thought I was dying out of the court because I was so disappointed, so mad and everything at the same time.
When I won the tiebreaker, I felt like I was going to pull the match out just because I felt like he'd be so discouraged. But I didn't have a lot left physically at that point. So once the 5th set started and suddenly he was sort of hitting big serves and feeling fresh, it put the pressure back on me.
After 3 hours and 10 minutes, the match was level again, 2 sets all. It was now that Borg's stamina and staying power started to tell.
What happened is I got tired, is what happened. Physically tired. And he took advantage of that. And so it became a battle of fitness and will as opposed to who's the better player.
That's it.
Borg's wedding present to his fiancée had been secured.
You know, he looked with a warm eyes. You know, he said, unbelievable. Actually, he said it in Swedish, otroligt. It's unbelievable, you know. He looked and he said, otroligt. He couldn't believe that he won 5 times Wimbledon. He couldn't believe it.
Borg had won his 5th successive title, but McEnroe had won over the crowd.
A tremendous hand for McEnroe, whose behaviour today was beyond reproach.
I know I have a jaundiced memory about this, but I seem to remember, you know, that John got more applause than Bjorn. I mean, I think he finally won them over in defeat.
The British saw this as a morality play almost, a drama, and they could see that even though they didn't like McEnroe perhaps as he came on, and they saw him as a brat and a whinger and all that sort of thing, they saw how he competed and how noble he was in the match itself, and they wanted to reward that.
Well, you know English, they like losers, you know, so they gravitate towards good losers, I should say. The idea is it's a game, you know, more so than America, where it's like, you know, you got to win at all costs almost. Well, there it's sort of, if you lose and handle it well, that's respected. It's not as respected here, it should be. I mean, I think it should be like this happy medium.
Borg celebrated by marrying Mariana Simeonescu in Bucharest. 7 weeks later, he was to continue his titanic struggle with McEnroe. John had headed straight home to New York to recharge his batteries in readiness for the battle. He was the typical all-American guy, sports, burgers and rock music. And his approach to practice and preparation surprised other players, including such legends as Billie Jean King.
Billie Jean was interrogating him, you know, well, you know, what do you do for exercise? Because she was the consummate professional, you know. Exercise? I don't exercise. As he's wolfing down, you know, food, you know, picking it, grabbing stuff off of my plate. What do you mean exercise? I play tennis. What do you mean?
You know, I don't think he's ever went for a run in his life. You know, like other guys came on the court, on the tour and said, oh, John, have you ever, you know, gone for a jog? And looked at him like they were crazy.
He didn't especially like practicing, which was probably one of the reasons why he played doubles so much. Anytime you can play a match, as opposed to practicing, you should do it.
And he won the Wimbledon doubles trophy 5 times.
He was so good that drilling, I think, would have muted his enthusiasm for the game. I mean, every time John took a swing, it looked like it was something he had just thought of. You know, it looked like just a fraction of the moment before the ball hit the strings, he had decided where to go. So that's not the kind of thing that you want to drill.
McEnroe's style of play exactly exemplified his personality. I mean, he was a risk taker. He was very adventurous. He would be outrageous.
He saw shots that nobody else could even imagine, and he could pull them off. So he was really a magician.
McEnroe threw down the gauntlet to Borg, and the meeting place was to be on his home turf at the US Open. As reigning champion, he was out for revenge for his Wimbledon defeat, and he knew it was a championship that Borg desperately craved.
Björn Borg was the greatest player in the world except for one small territory, which was the borough of Queens in New York.
The atmosphere was just perfect for John. I mean, the Flushing Meadow and the noise, the New York crowd, they really fed off each other.
The 2 greatest players in the world each made their way through to the final. Borg had to battle a fast surface that he didn't like, as well as a noisy crowd that appreciated the local boy. It had been Borg's 9th attempt and his 9th failure.
7-6.
He should have won it, but he didn't. So there was something, I don't know whether it was the air, the food, the atmosphere, the aroma of McEnroe. I don't know what it was, but he just could not win in the borough of Queens.
Although still the world #1, the loss was a blow to Borg. He responded in the only way he knew how. Practice, practice, and yet more practice.
Sometimes we have different, one chap in the morning and another guy in the afternoon, because it was 4 or 5 hours practicing every single day when it was not tournament.
He might have been back in Sweden, aged 9, hitting a ball against the garage door from dawn till dusk every day. For some observers, it led to a mechanical game, lacking a natural flair.
Borg basically only has a few options that he has to pick out of his armory, and so the chances are he knows those strokes unbelievably well, and he's not going to make any mistakes.
The constancy of his shots, combined with his almost bionic stamina, made him a formidable opponent.
He basically would wear you down until you would miss or until you would physically fall apart, and then mentally you break down, and then it's over. And Borg won the war of attrition just about every time because he was so strong and so fit. And after you'd play a long rally with Bjorn, you'd be panting a little bit, you'd look over there and he wouldn't even be sweating, and you knew you were in for a long day.
But like guys quit against him almost when they walked on the court because they just were so intimidated. He was such a good athlete. I don't think people realize how good an athlete he was. He was a superior, like Jimmy and myself. He was just a superior athlete, very, very fast.
Borg's steady, waiting baseline game was in sharp contrast to the artistic, impulsive McEnroe.
I did nothing like him. We didn't volley alike, we didn't hit ground strokes alike, we didn't serve similar, we didn't play the same style, we didn't have the same mentality, we had different personality. Nothing was similar.
Good evening. For our main action tonight, we have the great tennis confrontation the world had been waiting to see. The rubber match in Stockholm between Wimbledon champion Björn Borg and US Open champion John McEnroe. The clash which decided who was world #1 for 1980.
McEnroe, defending the Stockholm title, not only had to battle Borg, but also a slow surface. This rewarded the patient baseline rallier rather than the impulsive individualist.
And that's a running pass to dream about from Borg. Yes, right, and that's it. That's it for Borg.
Borg finally won the title that had eluded him for so long. And as 1980 ended, the champion had reasserted some authority over the challenger, having won 2 of their last 3 matches. But as 1981 began, McEnroe had his sights set on the world's #1. First stop, the Volvo Masters in New York. As they met in an early round, the pressure was showing on Borg. The unthinkable occurred.
Delay of game penalty. Point to Mr. McEnroe. 5-3 McEnroe.
Well, there it is. Mike Lugg has now awarded a penalty point against Borg. I can't ever remember seeing that happen before.
Arguing with an umpire and getting a warning. And I think that is an indication of how much McEnroe really preyed on his mind. And McEnroe was startled. He just stood there and watched, saying, this can't be happening. I'm the guy who's supposed to be doing that, not Bjorn.
I managed to be like the only guy, I think, that, got him to question calls. So in that sense, I felt pretty good about it. I got him riled up a little bit.
Borg eventually beat McEnroe and went on to win the title, but the papers were more interested in his outburst than the win.
He realized at last that this very talented man from New York was close on his tail, and that his own reign at the top wouldn't last forever. I think any athlete challenged in that way by somebody as talented as McEnroe would probably have felt the same way.
The French Open gave Borg a predictable victory on the slow surface where he reigned supreme. It was his 6th title. McEnroe responded by winning Queens, and the players once again rolled into London for the greatest showdown on the tennis calendar, Wimbledon. Borg, superstitious as ever, headed straight for his favourite practice ground at the Cumberland Club in North London to put in his usual 5 hours a day on the grass.
If I can have maybe 7 to 10 days practice really hard on the grass, Then I will get used to it and I will start to play well on it.
By the 22nd of June, Borg was prepared for Wimbledon. Nothing, however, could have prepared Wimbledon for the events of day one. John McEnroe lost all the goodwill he'd gained during his previous year's heroic final in one opening match.
15-30.
You saw that serve in for? What, because that thing verified it, or what?
Serve is good, Mr. McEnroe.
You got the absolute pits of the world, you know that?
I'm going to award a point against you, Mr. McEnroe.
I think I just wanted to sort of hide a little bit. I was so upset that it was hard for him just to sort of let a line call go, or maybe just to question it and then move on.
Can I have the referee brought out right now?
Tennis really does have to uphold authority in some shape or form.
Rather than getting yourself all worked up, you try to relax, maybe go get a drink of water or something, towel off, and just kind of patiently wait until the opportunity to play arises, and then you just want to be ready when that next point starts.
I remember the referee coming on the court. I didn't want him to get defaulted. You know, here he was in Wimbledon. He just going, oh, please just don't take it that far, you know. I never knew if he knew where that edge was.
Stories of McEnroe's outburst winged their way around the globe. Sports writers on the tabloids grasped the opportunity for front as well as back page copy. He had already been dubbed Super Brat, but now the floodgates opened.
I called him, I think it was the Incredible Sulk, a King's Sneer, the Merchant of Menace, the Prince of Petulance.
I think London's a great city, but I think the press sucks.
He'd either do one of two things, either misbehave, and that was your headline, or play such brilliant tennis that was a story in its own right.
They're full of baloney, most of the people. They have no clue what I went through, no clue what I'm thinking, no idea who I am as a person, no idea of what's going on in a tennis court. They have no idea about anything, basically.
Well, we wrote what we saw and what we heard. We would take up our seats on number 1 court or centre court and just wait for the explosion to happen. He couldn't play without aggravation.
Like any great entertainer, he lived up to the billing. You know, if they wanted him to be Super Brat, well, chances are they were going to be able to goad him into it.
So John McEnroe bows to authority rather theatrically.
Only in the very, very end of my career did I sometimes think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I'm addicted to this, or because people want me to do it?
McEnroe was calculating. He knew what he was doing. And so the other players didn't like it because they saw it as taking advantage. He already had this divine talent, but he wanted to add more.
There's been a lot written about his outrageousness being studied and actually calculating so that it would help him win matches. I'm not so sure. I don't think he had that much control.
You tell someone he's a complete jerk. You think he's going to turn around and give me calls? He's going to make even sure that he's not going to give me the calls. I had no calls come my way. That's what's so funny about it.
Can you ask the service line if we heard a line?
Good service.
Very good service. Very good service. But can you ask if we heard a let? It was a very good service.
The next court judge.
Out of the 2,346 calls that I disputed, I got probably 10 good calls out of that. I mean, every single time it was like I lost. So how could they say that it was to help me? I intimidated them into what? Giving me more bad calls? I mean, I never saw good calls come my way. Maybe I'm biased.
First penalty point. Unsportsmanlike conduct.
McEnroe's war with the umpires continued on the way to his second Wimbledon final.
But I really can't believe that
Borg took his usual, more dignified route through the tournament.
over the net, so hard and so close to the lines.
And this time it was he who had to face the old campaigner Jimmy Connors in the semis.
If he does, he'll surely win.
It turned into a thrilling 5-set match. It left the crowd gasping and first aiders carrying fainting fans from the ground.
40-15. Quiet, please.
Borg, 2 match points.
That's it.
Borg was through to his 6th successive final and another head-to-head with John McEnroe. It was the rematch everyone wanted to see. As anticipation rose on centre court for the clock to strike 2 p.m, Borg and McEnroe prepared for what would be their final Wimbledon showdown.
Bjorn, he'd won it 5 times in a row. John, the challenger once again. Would he, wouldn't he, would he be able at last to break the spell?
And here comes McEnroe.
I felt that 1981 John was going to win the tournament. It was as though he'd come of age and he wanted this match more than anything, and I thought that he was going to take it.
I never had doubts before. I had the feeling that he's going to win 5 Wimbledons, and I don't know why. And I used to tell Margareta, his mother, I said, Margareta, you'll see, he will make it. 5 he will make. But after that, I didn't have control anymore.
I feel very good, but it's going to be a very difficult match against John, and I just know I have to play absolutely at the top of my game. Like last year we had a good match, and I have to do the same thing this year if I like to beat him.
Feel that this gentleman has almost believes that this court is his own. It would be very, very difficult for him to be beaten here.
Quiet,
but if
please.
one player can beat him, it clearly is John McEnroe.
McEnroe to serve.
The challenger stamped his presence with an opening love game. The crowd was determined to be part of the spectacle, often at McEnroe's expense.
Early in the match, somebody called out to McEnroe, call the referee, John, which wasn't very helpful.
Tourniquet the referee, John.
Quiet, please.
Thank you very much.
I think that was more effective than me trying to intervene.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. 30, 40.
The heckling continued, but as always, it was the spectacular tennis which won through.
He's done it.
And McEnroe seemed determined to win without any outbursts.
The ball was out.
He respected Bjorn so much more than he respected anybody else, that he wanted to beat him fair and square.
I think at those times he felt probably the pressure of kind of living up to the Wimbledon tradition, you know, in a final, and also the respect that he had for Borg, and he knew he needed everything he had to beat him.
But Borg was feeling the pressure of a McEnroe serving like never before.
Myself, I had a little feeling that he didn't really have the same confidence as before. It was something in the air there. But of course, you can't say that because McEnroe was playing great tennis, and maybe the pressure was too big for Björn there, just that day too, huh?
And it began to tell in the fourth set, until finally McEnroe got his chance.
Championship point for McEnroe, and he's walked away from the baseline, waiting for the noise to subside.
The first match point, my legs were shaking a little. I mean, I could barely run to that ball.
But he was to get a second chance.
That's it. He's won it. He's won it.
For that 2 seconds after I won, I felt like I could, just was like there was no weight on my shoulders at all.
When we didn't see Björn sinking to his knees as he always did and thanking heaven for another win, we could hardly believe it.
Some would say it's like Queen Victoria dying, after all these years. And yet it was a very glad moment.
And a happy, happy farewell.
I remember very well interviewing McEnroe. He was ecstatic. He was delightful to be with. He was the child at Christmas who had finally opened the package.
I wanted to prove that I could win Wimbledon. And I proved it because I won Wimbledon. And I feel very good about it. And I feel good because I beat a guy that's one of the greatest players that ever lived.
It's always tough when you lose that last point, because I know the feeling when you win that last point, what a great feeling it is. And I know exactly what feeling John had after he won that last point.
The spell had been broken. McEnroe had deposed Borg and a new king was crowned at Wimbledon. McEnroe had struck a fatal blow to Borg, and in the way of great fiction, they met again just 10 weeks later in the US Open final.
I never felt better. I proved to myself that the first time I've been playing good tennis at Flushing Meadows. So I thought, no, I have a great chance tomorrow to beat McEnroe in the final.
It's out. Game, set, and that's it.
After the match, I was so disappointed. I thought, this is the end of my life, The only thing I want to do is to shake his hand and leave the place right away. It was just that I was so disappointed, and that was the reason why I left.
It was to be the final nail in the coffin. Borg not only left before the trophy presentation, but also walked out on the international tennis scene at the age of 25.
One morning, I said to Mariana that I'm going to retire from tennis. And she started to laugh, because she thought I was crazy. I mean, like I'm joking in the morning. She said, no. I said, really, I'm going to retire from tennis, because I'm sure that I don't enjoy it anymore. I don't have the same motivation.
I mean, I can't tell you how much that blew my mind for a couple of years. I couldn't believe, I kept being like, every time I saw him, are you coming back? You ready to come back? Time for you to come back? And I couldn't believe that he continued it, that he didn't. I mean, to this day.
Tennis was never the same for McEnroe once Borg retired. He did manage to lift the Wimbledon Challenge Cup a couple more times in 1983, and then again in 1984, the year he won practically every tournament he entered. But old habits die hard, and Borg and McEnroe find it difficult to keep away from each other. Nowadays they meet on the seniors circuit. Nothing appears to have changed, except perhaps the stakes.
My kid now, when people see me play, they say, oh, you're going to get mad when you play? I mean, these absurd questions. I said, yeah, it's in my contract. I've got to get mad a couple times, yell at a few umpires, or else I don't get paid. And people are disappointed if I don't get mad. So I have to pretend to be mad when I don't give a damn one way or the other.